Hey everyone, Doc Storm here with you today. So today I want to talk to you about how to play a fast cycle deck. So I know, it's quite a popular type of deck these days, and I like fast cycle decks. So that's why I'm here to explain to you why I like it, how I play it, and just tips and tricks and strategies to use, I guess, when you're playing fast cycle decks. So why don't we start with the basics here? What is a fast cycle deck? So to be honest, to me, a fast cycle deck is 3 elixir count and below. So similar to decks like this one, right? It's 2.9. I think it's the ideal fast cycle deck, but a lot of people will argue that anything below 3.5 elixir count is a fast cycle deck. Why that is the case is because if you look at most of the decks out, they are usually 3.5 to 4, to be honest, to be average. Especially if you look at, some of the higher level players, you will see that their deck C hovers 3.5, 3.5, 3.5. Let's go down, get some more variety. 4.3, right? So yeah, it does hover around that area. So to play a fast cycle deck means, to play 3 and below, in my opinion, or 3.5 and below. Now, why a fast cycle deck? Let's talk a bit about a few reasons. I'm going to throw up a replay here just for people to enjoy. So there's a few reasons why usually I like to play a fast cycle deck. You don't want to leave things to chance, because why I say that is sometimes starting hands are just terrible. So you want to play certain cards, but you don't have access to them. You have to cycle the cards through to match your opponent's cards, and that can often cause you the game because you have a very bad start. So if you don't want to leave it to chance, you can cycle through your cards easier because your cards are lower elixir count. You can able to afford to use certain cards, so you can recover and use cards that you want to do. That is what I find to be the most effective and why I love to use fast cycle decks. Another good thing is similar to that chain of thought is flexibility. For example, you can use the same card twice before opponent can use the same card again. Why that is important, as you guys know, is sometimes people use the same old tricks to counter your card. For example, barbs to counter your hog. If they use their barbs well, sometimes your hogs can do absolutely no damage, and that is annoying. If you can't bait the barbarians out, your hog is pretty much out of the game on that matchup. Your opponents are smart. So why I like fast cycle decks is sometimes I can play the Hog Rider twice before my opponent plays barbs. Now there is ways around it, of course, right? If you are a smart player, you can often wait till your opponent's elixir starve and then send in a Hog Rider. That way, even if they do have the barbs, they can't defend you. And I will show you a replay afterwards, and I will go through all these things with you so that things are more clear and help you guys hopefully play the game a little bit better. And now just keep in mind though, guys, every 4 cards you play, you can pretty much play the same card again on your 5th card. So if you are not good at counting, you know what, I'm not the best at counting either, you can at least count your own cards or your opponent's 1 card that likes to counter you a lot. So again, the 5th card they play, they can pretty much play that same card, okay? So you guys can try and count for that. So it is good though to kind of know how to count as you're playing this game. Now, why not to play fast cycle? I think the downside to fast cycle is usually because your troops cost less, they are a little bit weaker. So in terms of that, your placement and timing is crucial, because if you play those cards wrong, they can cost you the game because it's very easy for your opponent to sweep out those troops with you. Anything can pretty much kill those troops. So for example, 1 fireball can pretty much eliminate your whole attacking force if you clump them together. So that's why you have to be very careful sometimes when you play fast cycle decks, not to clump up your troops. And then placement is very important in terms of countering your opponent and also going for the attack. So be very careful. So if your princess is there to counter the minion horde, make sure their miner or another troop isn't there to distract it before you play it. So always kind of place your troops wisely. So in that sense, because I am playing weaker troops, I like to play counter and then counter push type of style. So that way, you know, I can defend the incoming troops easier because they wouldn't be able to screw me over with placement as much. I can place the troops wherever I want. And then that way, if you have leftover troops, you can counter with a stronger push. Usually, hopefully, they are elixir starved a bit. So in summary, you know, the downside is you have weaker troops. They are easily countered by spells, in my opinion, okay? Now, let's talk a bit about how to play a fascicle deck. So, know when to go on the offensive, I would say, is one of the biggest keys. Have a few combos in mind. For me, it's, you know, I send my Hog Rider in by itself. Usually, hopefully, I have some leftover splash support like my Princess or my Ice Wizard, right? Other things is you might need certain combos. So for me, like I said, the Hog and then my Mini P.E.K.K.A. Miner is also the combo that I use. Because your attackers aren't like Royal Giants, our troops are weaker. So knowing what your opponent has to defend you is very important. Again, back to the example, you don't want to send a Hog Rider and get absolutely countered by barbs. You deal 0 damage and those barbs are coming at you. So try to be smarter when you're going on the offensive, and I'll show you how to do that. One way here I'll list it is, one way to help is to play both lanes. So try to be unpredictable. Don't send things in on the weak lane all the time. You kind of have to play both lanes so your opponent has trouble picking which lane to defend, because if their deck is higher elixir cost, they commit more elixir to defend a certain troop. So if you're able to push both lanes very similarly at the same time, then you might be able to catch them off guard and deal some heavy damage and even go for the win. Again, I'll show you guys an example after. And then so back to that same train of thought is counter and then go on the offensive. My favorite strategy here. Important also, as again, your troops are easily countered because they're weaker. One good thing about countering is you hopefully should have leftover troops, so they do offer elixir advantage, and hopefully your opponent has lower elixir than you because you just countered them well. Then they have less elixir to counter yours, okay? So that is a few things. Now, I know we always talk a bit about like elixir advantage. How the heck do you gain elixir advantage? So a popular original ways I want to call it is, you know, people know these ways a lot, is, you know, playing elixir collector, your huts. These generate more than they are worth if they last through the duration. So usually you have to protect them to offer a benefit. The second thing is obviously defending. You naturally get free defense from your crown towers. So you're always on top in terms of defending because you technically have the advantage of a free tower to defend for you. So you can trade usually more effectively also. So like skeletons for their mini P.E.K.K.A., right? Because at that point, your placement is very crucial. It's harder for them to kind of place their troops on their side. So you have a few advantages here. Now, the not so obvious ways, in my opinion, okay, to gain the elixir advantage is one, of course, legendaries. Yes, you may not all have them, but they are so strong that they usually offer either a positive elixir gain or at least a neutral elixir trade. Because they rarely, if you play decent, offer you a negative elixir trade. Like now I know there's a log to counter the princess, but the princess has to be, you know, pretty high up there in the lanes for you to do that. Other ways is, you know, fireball, which is a negative, you know, arrows, which is an equal, or princess to princess. You know, it's very it's difficult to counter them. Same thing goes with the ice wizard. Like I don't like a fireball equal level 7 can't kill ice wizard on its own, which is worth 1 more. So, you know, these troops offer quite significant elixir advantage if you play them well. And then another thing to gain elixir advantage, obviously, is some cards are just overpowered at a given time in the game. Let's face it. After the patch, they mess balance up to balance the game. Just think about that one, okay? So there are troops that are technically more value, right? For example, if you compare stats of a mini P.E.K.K.A. for 4 elixir, I don't think anything gets better than that. Also, like, look at the amount of HP it has in damage. Same thing goes for a giant. It's very hard to compare another troop to that. Of course, there are other things involved, like their attack speed and things like that. But if you look at pure stats wise, they are very strong. So you should probably play some of those cards in your deck. One easy way to look at how strong troops are is, I would say, always look at what we call power rankings. You can Google that to find out what a power ranking is. So it's pretty much what's popular at a given time. So go Google that. Usually they do tell you, what popular cards are playing at this time in the current meta, and what, higher level players use. So kind of in that sense what cards are better at that point. So now, without explaining too much further, why don't we go right into a video and explain how to play a fast cycle deck, my style. So here we're just starting off. Usually I tend to wait a little bit, so if they play Elixir Collector, I can play my Miner to counter it. But if they don't, the good thing about this deck is I have the Princess and the Ice Wizard, and they're really good starter cards. Why I say that is they usually always offer a either a positive Elixir gain or a net Elixir trade. So you never really get too far behind, so that's one good thing. So here, anticipating the Miner was wrong, so took a little bit of beating there. But again, with the Ice Spirit and the Knight, I gained a little bit of Elixir gain there. So with this deck, what you want to do is play it kind of safe in the beginning. Know what type of cards your opponent has. I have very good countering cards in this deck, like the guards, the princess, the ice wizard. They're very good at defending. Same with the miner. He's offensive and defensive, which makes him very powerful. So in this deck, how I gain an elixir advantage is actually by defending and then also going for a counterattack with units that I have left. Now, there's a few combos in this deck that I have. It would be the Miner and Princess, Miner and Mini P.E.K.K.A. You saw the Miner and Princess. Pretty much what you can usually do is just wail at the tower with the Princess while the Miner tanks. So here you can see that levels matter a lot. So the Princess here, I thought I was able to take it out with the Ice Spirit, but it couldn't just because it was a level 2. And here I quickly send the Hog Rider on the other lane because my opponent committed to his lane on the other side, but then he did a very quick response to it with the Inferno Tower. But to me, that's always a good thing because one, now I know pretty much more cards that he has, and also Inferno Tower is a -1 elixir trade with my Hog Rider. So I'm always happy when people use the Inferno Tower to counter my Hog Rider. So again, because I know that it's hard to get damage off with my Hog Rider, I'm trying to send my miner in safely so that I can get some damage off of the tower whenever I could. Because with a fast cycle deck, your main advantage is being able to play the same card multiple times before your opponent can do the same. So in a way, it's harder for your opponent to counter your cards because your cards on average come out more frequently. So again, my opponent does pretty well in countering. Finally, I'm good. I figured out how to position my Mini P.E.K.K.A. to counter his miner placement. So that saved some damage off of my tower. And here, because my opponent again committed onto that lane, I rushed with my Hog Rider on the other lane, which made a very successful attack near the end right there. So there you have it, guys. Without making this video too long, I'm gonna end it here. If you guys have any questions or comments regarding fast cycle decks, you can leave it at the comments below. So good luck everyone, and clash on.